Loud, and we're recording. So welcome everybody. Go ahead, Todd. Sorry.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, and thanks. Hopefully people continue to come in, but we are glad to have our spring 2023 meeting for friends and members here with AME50. Hope many of you, I recognize a lot of names in the chat, are joining us once again, following our meeting in January during the annual meeting. So it's good to see y'all's names and faces on the Zoom call. And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the Accessible Transportation and Mobility Committee. And please feel free. Judy and I both want this meeting to be, and as this meeting and any of the other meetings that we do throughout the year, to be a place that people can get involved, ask questions, and provide updates. We'll have at the end of our agenda today updates from folks on things that you're doing in research or other project efforts for accessible transportation. So myself, Todd Hansen, and Judy Shanley, who you just heard speaking, have been the co-chairs for this committee. I guess we're still in our beginning year 2, I think.
God, how time goes by when we're having fun, right?
It really does. So we're excited to continue on into year 2 of our chairing of this committee, and also to introduce our other committee chairs. I think Yohai and Chungbo are both on, but Yohai is officially now the committee research coordinator of the CRC. Congratulations, Yohai, on officially receiving the title. So he is leading our efforts on research, topic need areas, and advancement of priorities for research statements, and organizing that, which he'll touch on a little bit. And then Chungbo Ai is our paper review coordinator, and he'll, particularly later in the year, will be talking more about our efforts with our paper review process and call for papers that we'll do and things like that. And then our communications committee, we have a two-headed communications committee together with Subhash and Susan, who are each handle the responsibilities for keeping track of our minutes, as well as our website, newsletter, communication information, which we'll touch upon during the meeting as well. And we'll see, right now they're not on the call, but we'll see if they're able to join. And if not, Judy and I will take notes throughout today to make sure that we capture this along with the meeting recording that we're doing right now. So to go through the agenda, here's our rundown for the hour-and-a-half meeting today. What we will do after our welcome period that we're in right now, we'll do a quick recap of what we did as a committee during the annual meeting of 2023, and talk about those activities. I'll give an update on the TR News special issue and our status for that project as a committee. Yohai will give an update on the research statement teams and the progress that significant progress that's already been made since our January meeting. We'll talk about communications tools and updates that are available and that we're utilizing as a committee for AME50. We'll touch upon TRB webinar submissions, and this is a topic we've touched upon, but want to make sure that we at our previous meeting, but we want to particularly get some of your feedback regarding ideas for that. We'll talk a lot about our TransEd conference planning and looking ahead towards the next TransEd and ideas and volunteers that want to be a part of that committee planning. We'll also talk about the CATE conference that is something that AME10, the Equity and Transportation Committee spearheads that we have some folks that are involved with. And then we'll talk about committee liaisons and looking ahead to the next annual meeting in January 2024. Now that we've completed the 2023 meeting, it's already time to start looking ahead for what we can do in 2024. And then we'll have time at the end for some open discussion for everybody. So if you haven't already in the meeting chat, if you can go ahead and sign in with your name and your organization in the chat box. And even though we're recording, we want to make sure we get a log of everyone who was able to attend today. So if you can do that and just put your name and organization in there. And just as kind of our usual disclaimers, during the meeting, I think we're pretty adept as a committee with our members and friends of being respectful and virtual participation in these settings, but just make sure that if you're not speaking, you have your line muted. And then as we get to different question prompts in particular, if someone's already speaking, you can either raise your hand, or I think in Zoom we have should be a raised hands feature, or if not, just chime in after somebody else is finished speaking, and that way we have one person speak at a time and we're respectful of their position. And then also don't just wait if there's something that we're speaking to and we're not getting to a question period, but you would like to ask a question or contribute in any way to the topic at hand. Judy and I will keep an eye out for hands that are up or anything like that, and make sure that we get your contribution, or able to answer your question, and we'll monitor the chat box as well throughout the meeting, like so. As always, be open to different perspectives of attendees, and if you have a technical issue, just let us know, and we can see if one of us can help resolve it. Judy, anything I missed before we get into some of the other conversation?
Thank you all for being here. We're excited again to share updates with you, and we really look forward to your thinking and your ideas on this work. So thanks, Todd. I'm good.
Sounds good. Oh, good. And Bill was able to join us as well. Thanks, Bill, for coming by. Bill always helps if we miss something in terms of an announcement to make sure that we get it right. So starting off, in terms of many of you attended our committee meeting as well as the annual meeting in January, or maybe if you weren't there in person, you were able to attend through our virtual meeting. I think the way we had our committee meeting set up during TRB this year, this is the second year in a row that we've done a combination of in-person and virtual. And I think from what we the feedback we received from folks that were able to participate virtually, that it worked pretty well. And we were lucky enough to get some meeting microphone tools from
Owls, right? They're called owls.
Yeah. From National RTAP that lent us those tools to help with some of to see the room and help with the speaker audio for the virtual participants in particular. So hopefully that was a good tool. Of course, it wasn't perfect, but for those that couldn't attend the meeting in person, I think at least having that connection open worked pretty well, and it works pretty well for our committee, particularly having a lot of international members and friends that maybe can't travel for whatever circumstances, to be able to participate during the meeting and not just catch up. So we did do that, and I think looking ahead, we'd likely continue to do that if at all possible, just in terms of a setup for our committee meeting going forward. And we'll talk a little bit at the end about looking ahead to 2024. So we do have a section about that includes considerations for our committee meeting. We also had one poster session in general that we kind of broadly titled Innovation and Accessible Transportation and Mobility. And this was a poster session that included our papers that we received as a committee, and then we deemed worthy for presentation through the review process. And we also had some posters that were included from our call for posters, that we had a handful of things not tied to research papers, but for other projects and accessible transportation research that are underway that we were able to include as part of the session. I think we covered a lot of great topic areas, including accessibility during COVID-19, issues for older adults in accessibility to different modes, and switching to different modes as a result of circumstances, and a lot of research also on emerging technologies in transportation and trip planning and wayfinding and those sorts of topics there. So that was, and we'll talk, we have a call for papers that we already have set up to submit to TRB that we did last year, and we structured it as a 2-year call. So we'll likely think about doing a similar thing, but that's how the poster session was set up, and we had some great people that presented during that poster session. And then we had 2 lectern sessions. One was focused on accessibility in air travel, and this was a session that was co-sponsored by 2 aviation committees. And Judy, I don't know if you recall what the titles of each committee are for 010 and 040.
Not specifically, but it was really focused on passenger issues associated with wheelchair securement, wheelchair access, and some of the new policies that are going on both here in the US and elsewhere around accessibility of bathrooms and size of aisles and seating. So it was a great session. It was a nice collaboration. And I think Yohai is going to talk about some work that has come out of that particular session that we're now focusing on a new potential TCRP paper or a airport program paper. So.
Yeah, and I think the panel that we had for that discussion was really dynamic in terms of talking about different efforts in airport and airplane accessibility underway, and some different perspectives on that. So it was a really great session for those that were able to attend. And then we also had a lectern session that actually I led in speaking, and was co-sponsored by AP055, our friends in the Rural Transportation Committee, that was specifically on shared use mobility in rural areas, and also included accessibility to shared use mobility options in rural areas. And so that was structured as a presentation on some of the background challenges in rural transportation access, and then a listening session discussion that encouraged audience members to provide their perspective and examples of solutions that they'd seen to those barriers for transportation in rural areas. So that was something interesting that we were able to set up as well, and kind of spoke to our kind of continued work with a fellow committee in rural transportation that we've been working on together in some things. So those were our sessions that we didn't have a workshop this past year, which I think that's something if we have ideas for when we get to later on, that we did. And then the same with our other activities that we could possibly add, so just to consider. But in terms of, if you have a chance to review the minutes from the 2023 meeting, and I'll just show where these are available. If you go to our page for trbaccessmobility.org, On the annual meeting tab, we have our minutes that are available, as our communications chairs have kept our site well updated, and we have the full committee meeting minutes for 2023 that are available through PDF download. So this shows everyone who attended and indicates members or friends, as well as people that were able to attend virtually versus in person, and goes through everything we talked about during the committee meeting in terms of just to scroll through these topics, the business items that we went over for AME50, TRB business items that Bill Anderson shared. Judy talked about our triennial strategic plan, our TSP, if we use the acronym in passing. And we had updates on communications, our research overview from both Trevor and Yohai. And then after our conference activities for what we were doing, we talked about, or we had presentations from featured speakers during the sessions on different topics from both USDOT, and then some updates of what we call these highlight presentations from the ITS for Us deployment program. Joanne Challam, a member of the committee, presented a project on a digital bridge and digital library of accessible transportation. And then we had a presentation from a visitor on the TrainMate robotic system before getting to updates on TR News, TransEd, and then kind of other discussion items. So for those, if you maybe haven't seen the meeting minutes already, but for those that have reviewed, is there any questions about what is in the committee minutes from this past January meeting? So I'll pause for that.
You know, Todd, I will say, this is Judy. One of the really great things that I think comes out of our meetings is the resources that are suggested by participants. And, you know, for those of you who didn't know about a particular resource or want to have updated information about what's going on with particularly the FTA, the Department of Transportation funded projects, go and contact the people that spoke at our meeting, or do a Google search for some of the websites associated with these projects, because it's really rich information. And they spend, you know, they volunteer to give us an update and share their learning and their studies with us, so we could acknowledge their contributions by being engaged with them over the long term. So I encourage you to follow up with some of the speakers that we've had.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And I'm sure they would be interested to hear from you in terms of you know, either questions or, you know, potential collaboration opportunities. So with that, does anyone move to approve the minutes from the 2023 meeting? Anyone with the affirmative? Yohai raises his hand to approve. Is there a second? All right, Robert and Ling approved a second. Okay, so thank you for that, for the parliamentary procedure. So we will approve the 2023 January meeting minutes. Again, those are available on the website. And if you do have you know, question, you know, or you know, want to follow up with the speaker, we can help, you know, get you in touch. Judy and I are happy to do that if you reach out. So moving along, for those of you that have been attending our previous meetings, you've known about the TR News theme issue that's coming up. And this is again working with AP055, the Rural Public and Intercity Bus Transportation Committee. As of now, where we are from where we started with this effort, which I think was, gosh, sometime last summer, maybe early last summer.
Long time ago.
Yeah, so long ago that we were approached by TR.
I was 2.
So right now, as of now, we're essentially on the 1 yard line or close to the finish line for this getting published. We have in this issue, we will have 9 total articles with authors from both members and friends of our committee, as well as members and friends of AP055. Some of these are topics together with that are both touching on accessible transportation for persons with disabilities and rural transportation improvement needs. And then others are more specialized and focused on topics within those areas. But we have 9 total articles, 2 of which are full features, and then 7 of which are mini features, quote unquote, in terms of just being shorter in article length. And then we'll have an introduction from Judy, myself, and Jill Howe with AP055 to introduce this special issue on transportation issues for those with disabilities and specialized transportation need. So that's going to be upcoming. I think we're still scheduled for it to be issued or released in July or August. And so obviously when that is published by TR News, we will include that as part of our newsletter and probably send that out, just as a special announcement that's available.
Yeah.
And, I also, all the work that, authors and reviewers, many of which are on the call today. Thank you so much for your time and repeated rounds of writing and editing and reviewing that you helped with to make this issue possible. So it's going to be really exciting to see it in print.
Yeah, this is a big deal. TRB doesn't often invite committees like ours to do a special issue like this. So this is a real acknowledgement by the Transportation Research Board of how important our topic is. So again, thank you to all of those who contributed. And what I was thinking, Todd, and I haven't talked to you about this, so maybe we do a webinar or some more public event when this is produced to share the information with the field. And we're going to be relying on all of you. All of you have amazing dissemination channels and different audiences who may be interested in the content of this issue. And so maybe we could think of an outreach and marketing strategy so that it's distributed wide. So.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think and maybe that's something we could potentially do with either with TRB's webinar series, or we could do it through another self-hosting sort of means. But potentially that could be, I think, a further dissemination of announcement of this being available and ready, and maybe having some presentations on some of the article topics would be great.
Yeah, there is certainly an international focus. Many of the author teams, we invited the international perspective. So I think everyone will find something of interest in this special issue.
I think one of my author teams had at least 4 time zones to deal with, and not just US time zones. So even just the writing perspectives, even if it wasn't subject explicit, was international and inclusion, which was great to see. So any questions about the TR News issue? Okay. Well, with that, I'll hand it over to Yohai, and you can give us an update on the research statement teams. And I think I got your updates to the slide that you sent this morning.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. I know it's last minute. And hello, everybody. I'm going to give a quick recap on what's been happening this spring since the meeting, since the January meeting. So I've kind of been set the idea, the approach that we've taken with the research statements is to develop teams to focus on writing the statements. And to facilitate that, we had a meeting in February to form the teams, to suggest the topics that we formed the teams around were based on what was discussed at the January meeting, and then other ideas that people had. And then we took those topics and developed teams, and people signed up for those teams via a Google Drive, which I can share the link for right here. Maybe I'll do it when I'm not trying to talk at the same time, and I'll put the link to the Google Drive folder here, because I tried to have a place where anyone from the committee could come and take a look at some of the resources that I've been using to help familiarize myself with the research statement process, and then where the teams who are writing are putting their collaborative documents as well. So we've been doing everything in Google Documents. So I think that's nice in terms of having an open, transparent process, and one where teams can work together. And so we have 2 statements that we submitted already. One at the end of March for TCRP synthesis on service quality assessment that Annabella and Ling and several others were a part of. And then one through ACRP, a problem statement. We were able to, through that lectern session, build off that discussion and have a nice collaborator in one of the aviation committees who was, very interested in this. And they worked with us to develop a statement there and connect us to the ACRP leadership. So really some exciting collaborations going on with our committee and the aviation committees. It seems like there's a lot of interest in these topics and interest in further developing that research. So both of those are wrapped up and were submitted. And then going forward, there's 2 more topics that resulted from that February meeting. One was around barriers from electrification of automobiles and electric charging infrastructure. And I wasn't able to go to that meeting, but there was a team that met early in April, I think, sometime last week, to discuss that topic. And then another team that's discussing the topic of temporary barriers to mobility, focusing on aspects of the pedestrian, outdoor, built environment infrastructure that present as temporary barriers. And they're meeting in mid-April. And so if you want to get on a list for one of those teams, I had essentially sent out a sign-up sheet, and I saw a question, I think, about whether you needed to be a friend or a member. I think you can definitely be a friend. It's open to anyone, even people outside of friends. This is kind of an open process of developing research statements. So here's the sign-up sheet. Of course, feel free to email me if you have any questions and would like to be a part of any of this. The second link that I'm going to put in here is to I put together like a research needs and problem statement planning page. This is basically like my reference too, but I think it's also a reference if you're new to research statements, want to gain an understanding of what this is and what the different cooperative research programs are and their timelines. I try to put that all in here to kind of have it so people are aware of this. And my role as the coordinator has been to just kind of open up these topics and try to help coordinate the teams to complete the statements, try to assist with editing or clarifying things on the statements and looking at some of the different procedural or required aspects of templates. And then what's been great is since the February meeting, several people volunteered to help be kind of team lead liaisons for the research task force. So the name for the research activities now is research task force. So several folks who are helping to lead those teams. And that includes some people on the call today. Kaylin Levin is facilitating the temporary barriers team. Amy Hofstra helped facilitate the service quality and assessment team. Benita Murthy helped with the ACRP wheelchair barriers at airports, and Prasanna Amagin is leading the electrification barriers topic. So each of those are helping to coordinate the specific meetings and helping to push the team along and be team leads. So, also open to developing more topic ideas, especially for people who want to lead a research statement topic. And I think, this committee is so large and vast, I'm sure there is likely going to be other people who would like to, assist with that writing, and I can help to, inform you about the process and the timelines and help to spur that on. Some of the upcoming timelines are in June with the TCRP problem statement timeline. And in September, there's a synthesis deadline for ACRP. For NCHRP, there's a November 1st deadline for problem statements, and then typically the February deadline for synthesis statements. And then there's another last one that's about behavioral transportation system cooperative research program, which is also in February. So all that again is listed on that Google document link I sent, but happy to answer if anyone has any questions on, I don't know if I missed any chat about anyone interested in being involved or wants to learn how to be more involved. Feel free to email me, and yeah, happy to follow up.
Thank you, Yohai. The people always ask Todd and I, how do I get involved? We have over 800 friends of this committee, and none of the activities that we're talking about today are limited to just members of the committee. So what a great way to meet people, to learn about new research ideas, to share your ideas. So please, Yohai has done a tremendous job of engaging those members and friends who maybe historically have not been so engaged in TRB, and he's put together some terrific resources to help you become more engaged. And Transportation Research Board itself has amazing resources to help members and friends think about how to be more engaged. So Yohai, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's exciting to hear everybody's ideas, and this is, like you're saying, definitely a way to get involved and have the topics, just starting out more broadly. Maybe you don't know exactly what the research is, but the topics that you think are important, like other people think are important too.
Yep, I think Ling, you have your hand raised. You have a question?
I like to add the point that for friends who are actively involved, we will note their participation, and maybe there's a poll for drawing in new members.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and Ling, I appreciate that points, and Judy and I have talked about, in terms of what Judy was saying in terms of involvement in these types of activities, and how do you get involved, when we're not at that point for another year or so. But when we do get to that point of looking, for new members to, add as the rotations happen, that'll be, a place that, we want to see not just, based on, who you are and what type of research you're doing, but we, want to get people, into those membership, positions that have been, helping with committee activities in various ways, whether it's on these research teams or in other, aspects for some of the things that we're talking about.
This is Judy again. The other thing that these kinds of committee specific activities enable is you to bring in your experiences with other work you may be doing. One of our goals on our triennial strategic plan is to connect our work to different forums outside of traditional DOT forums. So if you're involved in a health organization, you're involved in a mobility management organization or a pedestrian project, that's a way to connect the dots, to bring in learning that you may have from those experiences, to connect that with our work, and conversely for you to be an intermediary or catalyst to bring the work that we're doing in this committee to your work in other areas. So anytime we could do that and create synergies between different professional areas, professional disciplines, I think the better. Oh. Thanks, Yohai.
Thank you, Yohai. And again, I want to echo what Judy said in terms of his great work in getting this organized and following up from our January meeting. So if you are interested, Yohai had put in those links in the chat to the Google Drive resources that we're using, and you can also reach out, note in the chat if you're interested, to Yohai, or email him separately, and he'll make sure to help get you involved. Okay. Moving on to just some notes about communications that we've been doing, and this is more or less a recap, but for those that are maybe attending for the first time or the first time in a while, I don't see Susan or Subhash on, so I'll go ahead and handle this. Judy, I think Susan might have sent a note that she was having trouble getting connected, but I wasn't able to send her the link. So but I'll handle this. In the meantime, we're these are similar if you were at our January meeting, kind of the communications protocols that we're doing as a committee, at the moment going forward. We have been doing, and this, I say we, this is Susan and Subhash, our communications co-chairs, have been putting together quarterly newsletters that we will send out to members and friends. So we sent them on this quarterly schedule of July, October, January, and April. We did have one sent out in January following on the TRB annual meeting, and we'll do the same later this month to have an update of committee activities as part of that newsletter that we email out, and then we'll also have it posted to the AME50 website, so that it's available. That's the best way to get it. And we do, in terms of the newsletter content, since we're trying to make this a regular thing and make it a resource for you to keep up to date on AME50, as well as if there are interesting research efforts or projects or opportunities in accessible transportation that would be good to share with our members and friends, that we are continuing to invite people to contribute content to the newsletter. But we do have these guidelines for contributions that I'll read quickly. One, the content must be aligned with the mission and activities of AME50 and our members and friends. The contributors must be able to articulate the connection in alignment to our mission and activities in your request. And then the newsletter is not a forum to share information about commercial products or revenue generating services. So we want to keep this to be objective and informative in terms of the information shared, and it must be able to appeal to a broad range of our members and friends, particularly different disciplines, geographies, international perspective, etc. So if you submit those ideas to Susan, and we have her email address here on the slide, but we'll share it in the chat as well. I'll do that in a second. Then you can, if you have something that you think would be good to include as part of the newsletter, then you can let Susan know, and then Susan and Subhash and the rest of the committee chairs will take a look and make sure that it's appropriate to include the newsletter, and then that can be a good way to be, have that announcement as part of that. So the other thing, of course, we have the website, and this is kept up to date, with our meeting minutes, our recordings, and other announcements and newsletters. So as we do update communications, we're continuing to utilize the website going forward as a place to have that information available. So of course, that's at trbaccessmobility.org that you can get that information from at any time. And then the other thing we want to re-emphasize, as we always do, that it's important. I think most people that are here are already friends of the committee. So you probably got our message to attend this meeting by already being signed up to be a friend of the committee. But if there are others that that, were friends of the committee before, or, would be a, good person in their work relative to their research and their topical interest, to be a friend of AME50, then it's important to sign up through the MyTRB website to become a friend of AME50, because this is how we're able to communicate with our friends and members. We're now, Judy and I and other co-chairs of the committee can only email out messages and the newsletter and things like that through these dashboard tools that we have in MyTRB to our members and friends in the manner that we sent out the meeting invitation. So it's important that your information in MyTRB is up to date.
Can I just say something about that, Tad?
Sure.
Many of you probably received a email from TRB asking you to update your information, because my understanding is they're going through a cleaning process of their database of people registered as friends. Some of the information that we have is decades old in terms of contacts for people. So TRB, I think, is going through, and they're going to start deleting people from their database if people haven't updated their profile. So I encourage you, make sure your information, your contact information in particular, is updated, because we don't have any other way to communicate with you if you go away as a friend of our committee. Thanks, Todd.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for that reminder. So if you got that email, make sure you respond to it and go into MyTRB and reconfirm your friend status. And then you can also, I have on the image here on the slide, under the My Activities page or tab on MyTRB, if you click on My Activities, and then there's a button selection for Become a Friend of a Committee that you can select. And then from there, there's a whole list of all the committee codes that appears on the screen, but you can filter to type in our committee code for AME50. And then in the action column, you can select Become a Friend. And it's as simple as that for keeping up with our committee as well as others through that friend confirmation. Anything else I missed, Judy, on communications or questions from folks?
I think that's it.
Okay. So Yohai, I can talk about this if not, but I wasn't sure if you or I were handling the webinar submission discussion.
He might have stepped away.
Yeah, I can go ahead. Yeah, essentially with this, we're as we mentioned earlier, there are opportunities with TRB to have webinar submissions through their webinar series. We've done this, I think we had one last year, or maybe it was the year before. Time flies, as Judy mentioned earlier, that we've done this before as a TRB webinar that's sponsored or co-sponsored by our committee on a certain topic. And so we do have this, available, and TRB essentially does this throughout the year. They have these, there's 3 deadlines throughout the year that are then for a 4-month period of webinar scheduling. So the next deadline that's upcoming is July 1st through a form for submissions, and that they consider and review all the possible submissions. And that will be from those that are received on July 1st. They will then have scheduling for different webinar sessions from September through December of 2023. So the other thing with this form is that it's through the TRB webinar process. It's important that it is tied to a committee or a TRB project, like a TCRP or NCHRP project of some kind. That's another avenue for these webinars. But if it's not through one of those projects, then it's important for it to be a committee supported activity in order for it to then get consideration from the review panel, and then a selection and slotting into their schedule. So I think in January we just went over kind of the requirements for this. We didn't talk about any specific ideas other than just saying this is an available opportunity. And we do want to do webinars periodically as part of our our goals for the committee and research dissemination and discussion and advancement of these topic areas. And so this is really something that we're looking for ideas on from folks to whether or not there's a webinar opportunity available. Judy mentioned earlier possibly doing the TR News issue. It could be an opportunity to submit that, and so maybe Judy and I can make a note for now to take a look at the form and see how that could be a presentation opportunity. But we welcome others as well if you have an idea or for something either the committee's done already or another relevant research topic that we want to feature and have more discussion on. So I'll stop there, and then Judy or Yohai, or if you have anything else, any ideas on this. Yohai, you have an idea about the airport airline accessibility?
Yeah, just thinking about a lot of strong interest and discussion around airport accessibility. So kind of thinking about if there might be one that built and obviously the lectern session. So maybe one that advances that discussion, kind of keeps it in play. I know we had Kelly Buckland at the meeting in January too, and that was a big emphasis for him too. So could be a nice focus for a TRB session that we do jointly with one of the aviation committees.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree that that's something that, again, TRB likes anything that's, committees working together, in any capacity. And so, that would not only would that continue the important discussion that was had during the session and those presentations at our committee meeting, but, also that committee cooperation would have some great appeal for sure. So I made a note of that. Ling, did you have?
Yes, on the subject of airport airline accessibility, we restricted the ACRP submission to the person that is in wheelchair or power wheelchair. And I raised the issue about the other groups of disabilities, and it's a much wider topic because it includes wayfinding, orientation, ticketing, security, and that could be a good webinar topic as well as some lantern session, because it draws a lot of the various committees know-how and the larger community of persons with disabilities together.
Yep, good point.
Absolutely, yeah. I think highlighting different disability types that maybe don't get as much focus in these conversations would be that could, like you said, that could be a webinar of its own in terms of the topic area.
The other issue about webinar is how much we have to pay to get in. Remember last time there were issues raised. I don't know what is the decision or how we are going to reach to those that could not pay.
Yeah, and I'll start, and Judy as well, you can chime in. We did have some discussion with Bill Anderson, our TRB staff person, about this in January, and essentially there are opportunities to request that a webinar be made available at a discount or for free, instead of the usual TRB fee to attend. And so that's something that we can do based on a request, and it's based on, the request has to be based on a need for the attendance and the audience of the webinar information to be able to attend like that, which our many, yeah, as we know, as researchers and academics and others in the space, that there often, for our audience, there is a need certainly for that, and so that's something that we can do and make a request. It doesn't necessarily mean it will be approved, but it is possible, is what we heard.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. Nothing else to add.
Mhm.
Yeah, good point, Ling. I know that's true. Many people, I think it was a nominal amount, but still that could be a hardship for some. So,
Mhm.
I think TRB is willing to consider individual cases where
Mhm.
payment of $100 is $100 is not feasible. So good.
Okay, any other, and so I've made notes of, the idea for a airport accessibility, as well as, accessibility and air travel for, disabilities other than the wheelchair, power chair, users, is some potential ideas. And so we'll make a note of that, and we can, Ling and Yohai, we can follow up, as a group on that, of a webinar submission in that area. But otherwise, if there aren't any other questions, just keep this in mind if you think of something that we can, potentially form a webinar about. And even if we'd like to have a couple ideas submitted for July 1st, but there's always another deadline around the corner for the next presentation period, essentially. So with that, let's go to Trans-Ed conference planning. And Jeannie?
Trans-Ed conference planning. So I know Jeanette is on the line. I want to recap from the previous Trans-Ed. In September, we had the virtual Trans-Ed. It was the Trans-Ed and Demand Response Transportation Conference. We had it from September 12th through 16th. It was a collaborative effort between our committee and Jill Howe, APO 20. And it was very well attended, where Jeanette and I are trying to get some data from TRB regarding the evaluation feedback more formally. We've had conversations with people, and people generally were pleased with the conference. We had a pivot in the middle. Originally, this conference was supposed to be in the United States, and it was supposed to be face-to-face, but we did make the decision to move it virtually. So we had to kind of pivot our thinking. Kit Mitchell was the program chair, and he did an amazing job, along with many of you who were on the conference planning committee, to plan a really robust conference. A lot of the recordings of that event are on our website, so please go and access the data. And when we do get evaluation data from TRB, we'll share it with you, certainly. One of the things that was a little disappointing, and I just recently learned this, and maybe you guys can help me think about, how do we address this in the future? We had like a call for papers, a conference proceedings request, where we wanted people to submit their papers for publication, and we only got 6 viable submissions. I think we got 10, and then out of those 6 were identified as appropriate for publication in a conference proceedings. And TRB felt with so small number of papers that it wasn't it didn't warrant a special edition, a conference proceedings. And so they're exploring alternate ways for us to publish the information, whether it's through SAGE, as individual papers. We even talked to them about adding those papers to the TR News special edition that we've all been working on over this past year. So stay tuned, but please help think about in Trans-Ed 2025, we really want to encourage submissions of people's papers. We have them, a lot of the content is available publicly now through the our website, but we really want to get publications out of it. So please help us think about how to encourage that. And Jeanette, I know you're on the phone and I don't want to put you on the spot. Is there anything that you wanted to add about the 2022 conference?
Well, I mean, just, well, I know that I was the one who did the regional videos.
Yep.
And these regional videos, I mean, what we wanted to push was to continue or try to start gathering people from different regions, no, because maybe we have like the same issues, no? For example, Latin America, I mean, we know that, no, we more or less work in the same way. So, I mean, just to think about it, I mean, how can we continue with this work, gathering people from by regions? It's just to think about it.
Yeah. No, that's really, they were very well attended, and the videos that the different regional representatives put together to talk about accessibility in their part of the world, those are available on our website too. And I agree with Jeanette that let's think of a way to utilize that kind of structure as we're planning for 2025. We want, the hope is that the conference in 2025 is going to be international. TRB has some limitations in terms of international participation. So an ideal situation would be for us to identify another international organization who may be holding a conference, and then we partner with them to carry out the conference, so that it's not such a big time or money expense for TRB. And so if people have ideas for any international organizations that might be willing to partner with us, it's a potential liability for an organization to have a TransEd conference because there's a monetary outlay that needs to happen, right? There's some costs that that organization is going to incur as they're planning the conference, and whether that money is recouped when registration happens, whether they hit the appropriate number of registrants so as not to take a loss, that is a big consideration. So in our preliminary outreach to some international organizations, they've been tentative about wanting to co-host with TransEd. So, perhaps the regional approach is a way to go, but still looking for ideas. And people, I know that some of you have expressed interest in being part of a planning committee. Send me a note again, and if others of you haven't already inform me about your interest, please do so. Time is fleeting, so we need to get moving on a 2025 conference, and I'd love to have all of your participation. That's it with TransEd. Is there anything else? Anyone have any feedback or questions about TransEd? It's hard to see hands raised. Okay, moving on.
Okay.
So I sent a note out to I guess it was members and friends. We were invited by Kate, is the Conference on Advancing Transportation Equity. We were invited to be part of their planning committee for their 2024 conference. It's going to be held in June in Baltimore, Maryland, in the US. Right now, they don't have a lot of international representation in terms of planning, and they have very little emphasis on disability as a topic of equity. And so our presence in planning is really important. There's 3 subcommittees that they're forming. And so if any of you have an interest in being part of either a program subcommittee, marketing subcommittee, or fundraising subcommittee, please let me know, and we'll pass your information along to Kate, the Kate conference planners. Again, Kate is the Conference on Advancing Transportation Equity, and I think it was virtual a couple of years ago, and this is going to be in person in the United States in Baltimore. So please send me your interest, but it's certainly aligned with the work of our committee. So I hope that many of you are interested in being part of the planning of Kate. Any questions on Kate? Are any of you already involved in Kate? Have you been involved in the past?
I'm trying to remember who the folks that signed up for us before.
I signed up to be
No,
involved.
We haven't been involved in the Kate, but I have you have my name on
Mhm.
as
Yep. Yep.
on the committee, and I would like to be on the program side.
Okay. And
Okay.
Yohai, I know you expressed interest as well.
Yeah, it's Roger here. I was involved. I presented the last Kate conference online, but I think I was the only person with anything on disability.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's very, very disappointing.
Yep. Yep. Well, we're not going to let that happen this year.
No, but I'm happy to help. Anything
Yeah,
I can do to
wonderful,
help.
Roger. Thank you. Appreciate that. Great. Well, if others of you have an interest, just send me a note offline and we'll get you signed up. Thanks, Todd. I think we can move on.
Great. So moving on, so this is something that I've wanted to get started for our committee, is having kind of more formal committee liaisons for AME50, and particularly for a little bit better a process in place to relay information to AME50 about what's happening with other committees and different transportation topics with that. So what I'm going to be setting up is essentially a list of the primary or additional or / liaisons of people that will kind of be the point person to AME50 in terms of what other committees are up to with their different activities for conference planning or other any of the things similar to what we're doing, what they're doing, and that way we can look for potential collaboration opportunities as relevant with that, and take advantage of those opportunities before it's too late or the last minute to be able to get involved. So this will be a way, if you're interested in being that point person, and you're either a member or a friend of that committee, and also a friend or member of our committee. That way you can be that point person to the co-chairs and our members about those committee activities when we have different meetings of different types. I do, as people are interested in this, we will give preference to people that are members of that other committee, because you'll be the most in the know of what's going on with them. But that's not a requirement necessarily, as long as you're regularly involved or attending their meetings and such, to be able to relay information to us on that. And again, this will help with identify those opportunities that we can collaborate with other committees at TRB, which is something I mentioned earlier that TRB likes to see in different aspects. And it will help in advance of making sure that there's not meeting conflicts or other sorts of conference planning conflicts or anything like that, that we can help identify those earlier in the process of putting those together, than when we get to a place that people are torn between two places. We also talked with Bill Anderson about this, and he had some great suggestions for being able to put this in place. And one thing that he said he can help us do is, particularly for the committees that we do a lot of interfacing with. So take AP055, for example, in rural transportation, when there are at the TRB annual meeting, different sessions or committee meetings or subcommittees that are particularly relevant for AME50, that we want to have attendance at as well. We can identify what those committees are that we're particularly interested in attending, and then try to get rid of overlapping meeting conflicts as part of the annual program. It's not guaranteed that those meeting conflicts will be resolved just because of the complexity with scheduling, but that's one thing that can be a resulting help of this process. And the same goes for other things that are going on between what we're doing at AME50 and what other, key committees are doing. And so we also, as part of that, we'll have at future meetings like this one, when we get to the announcements section, we'll have a quick, rundown for designated liaisons to, help check in about, here's what AP055, or here's what, the Transit Data Committee, AP090. I'm a member of that committee, so I would be the person to help with that. But we can have check-ins of what's going on, and as it's relevant, particularly if there's a opportunity for like a guest speaker or a topical conversation on a cross-cutting topic between AME50 and another committee, we can set aside time, for that as well. Either at these virtual or in-person meetings as part of those collaborations. Judy, did you have something?
Yeah, this is, again, I keep harping back to the triennial strategic plan because that's kind of our blueprint for moving forward. And it's a way for us to like a check to see how we're doing, what our progress is. And this work, the liaison structure that we're thinking about, is really aligned with that, is integrating our work in different committees and different topical areas and different programs across DOTs, across other federal agencies. It's just a nice opportunity for us to be present and for people to learn from us and us to learn from them. So think about it.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you if you're interested, you can again, you can comment in the chat if you'd like to be the liaison, and if you're a member or friend of that committee, you can comment in the chat. You can send me an email, which I'll put in the chat real quick. And then I can note you down as being that liaison or one of the liaison persons for that. And then moving forward, when we get to that time for sharing of information, we'll be able to do that through I'll know to ask Judy what's going on with such and such committee, because she would be the person in the know. So I don't see any hands up, but any questions about liaisons for AME50? Okay. Well, then I'll move to kind of discussion about 2024 TRB annual meeting. It's never too late to start planning ahead. So yeah, just to start, we want to be thinking about what are some different, this again is kind of similar to what we were talking about with the webinar discussion, but we want to be thinking about what we want to do in terms of programming and topical opportunities for the annual meeting next year. One reason is that in order to do a workshop, which we've done workshops in the past, AME50, and these are the workshops that occur for the annual meeting on the Sunday of TRB before most of the other committee meetings and activities occur on Monday through Thursday. If we want to do a workshop, that deadline is upcoming. I don't have the specific date, but I believe it's in May in terms of submitting a workshop idea.
It's soon, yeah.
And so again, this could be an opportunity for something on the airport accessibility conversation that we had earlier, or elsewhere in terms of a workshop idea that we can submit. Again, if there's a opportunity that for either collaboration with another committee on one of our ideas, or a workshop that another committee is working on that we believe accessibility would be especially relevant to include as part of that discussion, then now is the time to get involved and put something together with this through our committee. So
And just as a FYI, this is Judy, the workshop at TRB outlines the differences between lectern sessions and workshops on their website, but a workshop tends to be more interactive. It's a longer period of time. I think it's about a 3-hour time span, but it's a real opportunity to have discussion, to develop action plans with different audiences. I think, Todd, weren't you part of a workshop that I organized like 4 years ago or 3 years ago? It was like universal mobility and shared use mobility, and we had people develop action plans and thinking about, you know, what this meant for their own communities. And it really, I thought it was a really good and useful use of time, because out of that we generated some action items for our committee. Oh, and the other thing is, I see Todd on this section said a larger accessible room. Bill, during our members meeting last week, Bill did mention that he's looking for a larger room for us. He understood how our committee has grown, which is a really great thing. And we want to make sure it's accessible to everybody. And so he's going to be looking for a larger meeting space for us.
Yeah, so that's one great thing that we heard from Bill recently. Go ahead, Lynn.
I would like to suggest that I like Jeanette's regional and international videos so very much on the last transit. And I think that that idea could be put forward as kind of a workshop in the either the upcoming 2024 meeting, or also to volunteer her as in the program of Kate, because that's what they need.
Oh, great idea.
National exposure.
Yep. International and disability exposure.
That's right.
Great. Hey, Jeanette, how do you feel about that? Ling just volunteered you.
Well, of course, I have been trying to push this, you know, for the last years. No, so of course I'm happy for that.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you. Yeah, maybe we'll get together with you, and particularly for the workshop idea, because the timeline, the deadline is soon. We need to focus on that, so we could connect offline. And a couple other people. Robert Sheehan, you have your hand raised?
Yes. Hi, how you doing? Can you hear
Hi,
me?
good. Yep, we can hear you.
So I joined late, but I've been listening, and I apologize I have not contributed to the conversation yet. Because I probably want to make a comment on liaison as a representative from regional TISMO, and there's a lot of connection into here. And if you're not aware, I've been supporting some of the projects in the DOT side for several years. Now our work, and my comment here is about the workshop, and it's also a comment on some of our projects, the DOT, how even we focus on this area of accessibility, and sometimes we shift too quickly to a broader term and then fail to recognize some of the specific needs, which applies to the workshop recommendation that came from, I think, AP020 also, which is the innovative public transit. And I believe ACP 10, Regional TISMO, is a co-sponsor. And I think there's one more, which is a joint committee on equity. So Adam Cohen, I think, is the chair, and he's been initiating this conversation. The reason I bring it up is the Sunday workshop, definitely interactive. That was the design, breakout conversations built around certain topics, but they're converging on like microtransit and technologies and the wallet, the payment, looking at the application of AI within this construct. So if it's possible, could AME50 be a joint sponsor, and we explicitly make sure that one of the breakout tables in each session is clearly articulating on these specific needs, so they're not, they can turn into, need statements or requirements within the other work. So that's what I just offer for work being done by others.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. I think that's a great idea, and I can certainly follow up with Adam
Okay.
about that and see how we can support and get involved with that. But
Yeah, we just
yeah.
had our first call, like 6 days ago, a week ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll send Adam a note about it, and yeah, let him know that and I can CC you on it also if you'd like.
Okay, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Great idea. Other questions or comments? So we have the workshop and you know, other you know, I think on the second bullet point here, we'll keep the you know, conversation going about different you know, session ideas and things, that topical opportunities that we want to be you know, thinking about for the next meeting as well. But definitely the workshop piece is the most critical and time sensitive, like we were saying. Okay. Well, if not, and keep the discussion going in the chat, or you can reach out to us following. We wanted to have some time. There were other items we missed that you have questions about. This is, you know, kind of an open area as well. If you'd like to announce something, we do. Bill Anderson wanted to make sure we mention that this call for abstracts for the Transportation Resilience 2023 conference, which is also supported by USDOT and AASHTO. They currently have a call for abstracts that is open for this conference that's going to occur. Let me just look at the notes here. In Washington, D.C. in November. And so this abstracts are open until April 28th is the last day you can submit abstracts for this conference. And their focus at this conference is particularly on building transportation systems that are more resilient to hazards caused by extreme weather and climate change. And so we definitely you know, want to include, if you're, you know, doing research that is you know, touching on those areas of climate change resilience, and particularly you know, maintaining or improving accessibility you know, during those events and from the effects of climate change and extreme weather, then this would be a great opportunity to submit an abstract to that conference there.
Hey, Todd, this is Judy. I see that Susan Clark, our communications chair, did
great.
join us. Susan, Todd went over information about the newsletter, but is there anything specifically you want to appeal to our members and friends about communication?
Thanks, Judy, and sorry to join late. I had some trouble connecting. I don't think so. If Todd covered what's in the deck, I think that's it. Just a reminder that the newsletter, the next one, will be out later this month in April. So if anyone wants to contribute, to please let me know. I can put my email address in the chat, and I believe it's on the deck as well.
Yeah, and I did send it too in the chat, but it is on the deck.
It's in the chat
Yeah,
already.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And Susan could also be reached via our website.
Perfect. I think that's good for my end. Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Sorry, I'm
other
trying to-
items? Any other things people want to share about their work? Any upcoming events that you want us to be aware of?
My name is Chris Bell. I can't find the raise hand button. I am a retired attorney with the American Council of the Blind, and I'm particularly interested in pedestrian safety issues. And one of the things that is unclear to me is how states, in doing their vulnerable road user safety assessments, are supposed to have a methodology to identify various subgroups of people with disabilities as part of the safety assessment. And it's not clear to me how much data is actually available, or even that if it's available, it might not meet sufficient quantitative standards. So I don't know whether that's an issue that anybody thinks would be a relevant research topic, or maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree, but I'll take anybody's comments, or they can reach me offline.
Oh, it's a great topic. It's an important topic, right? If the data is suspect, if there's no accountability or consistency on what's being collected, then the data is not going to be so meaningful. So yeah, great topic.
Thanks, Chris. And we can note that as part of Yohai's tracking our research topic, development areas. And so we'll note it for sure in the minutes, and then you can also get in touch with Yohai about it, and that could be a good opportunity for development of a problem statement of some kind.
Okay, thanks very much. I would also mention two things that are relevant, I think, to the committee. One is that the United States Access Board has approved a final public rights of way accessibility guidelines. It's now sitting at OMB for clearance for publication.
Wonderful.
And the other is that the American Council of the Blind has been doing a fair amount of litigation against cities regarding their failure to install accessible pedestrian signals as a violation of Section 504 and Title II of the ADA. And so those are issues that I've been interested in and involved in, and I don't know whether there's a place in this committee for those kinds of legal analyses and the impact on the issue of accessible pedestrian signals.
The issue of ADA transition plan is certainly important to this group, and the kinds of supports that are provided to states and local jurisdictions and how they carry that out. I know Yohai is a national expert in that topic, as are many other people in this committee. So why don't you, I think these are all important topics, suggest them to Yohai, and I betcha he'll get some other members that might be involved, and you all can explore the best route, the best dissemination channel and information gathering channel for that, because I think they are germane to this committee and they are really important. And as you know, as the PROAG standards get released and announced, that's going to have even more implications. So I think our committee definitely has a role in all of this.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Ling, did you have another question or comment?
I really applaud the previous speakers about the legal and constitutional challenges. I know that David and I had done a bit of work in our early days about the various challenges, legal, otherwise, and maybe it could be a session, a Lantern session on international practices on these. The second point I want to raise was the lack of papers submitted for the TR records. I recall last time we mentioned something about the Portuguese conference way back, and I wonder whether we could have it here as an action item or follow up.
Bill said that he was going to follow up, and for those of you who weren't, we had a member call last week, and the topic was raised that there was never a TR news publication, a TR record news. I'm sorry, I'm messing up the words, but that was never published. And we didn't know what happened to the papers that had been submitted. So Bill was going to follow up with his colleagues to find out what happened to that. And certainly we're not going to let that happen. We'll figure out, how we can mitigate that. But as soon as we know something, Ling, we'll follow up. And the issue about the legal challenges, part of me is a little squeamish about getting into legal kinds of issues. I think that's not our position. I think we could be informative in terms of some of the issues and the challenges, but I'm a little hesitant to encourage legal discussion, at least that's my thinking.
And there is, I mean, there is the legal issues and transportation committee, I believe. I'm probably butchering the title. That maybe that's, you know, something that they could have more of a hand in that area.
Yep.
You know, on the legal side.
Yeah, good.
The CTA, Susan Clark can comment on it. There's a whole lot of challenges of transportation that goes to the Canadian Transportation Agency for resolution. And a sample of these could be interesting, the various aspects of the resolutions, the complaints, and so forth.
Just a review of that. Yeah, good idea. Maybe we could check with the legal committee, Todd, and see whether they've done anything like this or whether maybe there's some partnership opportunity.
Yeah. Making a note.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Well, if there's, and you know, we're still open for questions, but or announcements, but yeah, in terms of our next steps, as we said, you know, on research topic ideas, like as you have already, if you're, you know, have an idea that you're, you know, of interest, or you want to contribute to some of the things that are going on in terms of research development, statements, or development of research statements, Yohai Eisenberg is the person to get in touch with. And so, you know, please continue to do that if you haven't already. And then in terms of our next meeting with members and friends, we'll have a virtual meeting sometime in August or September, TBD. And so that's something you'll see an invitation for later in the year in terms of an announcement about that to be able to attend. And of course, as Susan just mentioned, there'll be a newsletter from AME50 later this month on our various activities. And that's a place, again, if you have you know, announcements that you think should be included as part of the newsletter that follow those guidelines that I went over earlier in the presentation, then you can provide those to Susan. But otherwise, if there aren't any other questions or hands raised, I don't see any, then yeah, please sign in the chat if you haven't already. We'll give you another minute to do that, but thanks everybody for attending our meeting today and your time, and we appreciate the discussion and your attendance and continued involvement here at AME50.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe.
Thank you.
Bye.
You guys too. Have a great day. Bye.